You are interested in easily monitor the level of your silos, your tanks or IBC containers? Well, we have a perfect fit solution for this use case. It's called Netillion Inventory, and it gives you the possibility to track the level of your solids and your liquids in such containers, silos or IBC tanks, for instance. Netillion Inventory is a subscription-based service that you can book online on the Netillion website. It gives you an overview and a dashboard with the visualization of the inventories, and you also can track the inventories on a map. You have the possibility to set thresholds for delivery or disposal, and if these thresholds are being exceeded, you will get a notification by email. Compared to Netillion Value, you have the possibility to do a linearization of your tanks, silos or containers to get the volume of the inventory and also to see the free capacity. Moreover, you can book add-ons to your subscription, for example, the connected asset. What is a connected asset and what do I need this for?
So talking about Netillion, a connected asset is actually a field device which communicates directly to the Netillion cloud. So it doesn't require an edge device for this communication. An example for this, especially if we're also talking about Netillion Inventory as an example here, would be the MicroPilot FWR30. You can see it is completely wireless, it has a battery pack, it has an integrated SIM card, it uses to communicate via mobile communication directly to the Netillion cloud. You can then put the sensor on top, for example, of one of these IBC tanks, and it will measure the content inside of the tank. But now maybe you already have one of these MicroPilots FWR30, or you just ordered one and you want to use it with Netillion Inventory. Well, as soon as you have it in your hands, you can just go for an inventory subscription, just like Julia told you before. And now I will show you how you can add then this device to this new Netillion Inventory account. As you can see, I'm currently signed in into my Netillion Inventory account, which I just created. And at the moment, there is no asset inside of it. I have my MicroPilot FWR30 here with me, and now I want to add it into my Netillion Inventory account. So there are actually two ways I could do that. So one would be to scan the asset. So here I would use the camera of my laptop, for example, or of my smartphone to just scan the QR code you can see here on the FWR30. And the other way would be to do it like with any other asset you add to Netillion. Just click on Create Asset. Then choose the manufacturer first off. So in this case it would be Endress+Hauser. And then enter the serial number here. I will now quickly do that. And you can see that as soon as I enter the serial number here, a lot of information is already filled in for me automatically. So for example, the product code, the precise product name. Now we can also define some connectivity settings further down. We could, for example, define the measuring interval. So how often the MicroPilot FWR30 should actually measure the contents of the tank, and as well a transmission interval. So how often should this device then send the data into the Netillion cloud. Then we can just save this and create a tag for it as well. So now we can create a tag, or as you could also say, the actual point of measurement then. And we can give it a tag name first off. So normally you would use some naming convention which you can follow easily. I for now would just call it LT01 for level transmitter 1 and give it as well a status. It is currently active. It is of the type level, that's correct. I could now also enter a description here as well, and I can do my full empty calibration, which is very important to do now. So first off, I can choose here the unit I want to use. So in my case, I will just say it's centimeters for now. Then I have to define the empty level. So the distance from the device to the tank bottom. We can just say for now that this could be maybe 200 centimeters then. I can now also define the full calibration. So that would be the distance at the end from the tank bottom to the highest level. So where you would say your tank is full. I would say that's now 190 centimeters. The blocking distance, you should normally be able to leave this on automatic, but if you run into issues, you can also just take the tick out of the box here and enter a blocking distance yourself. The sensitivity you could normally also leave on medium. If you see later on maybe that isn't sensitive enough, you can set it also to high, or if it's too sensitive, you could set it to low. Then you can also define some properties for your tag, maybe like the accessibility. I would say mine is easy to reach, and for this demonstration it has a high criticality. Additionally, you can also define some labels, for example, if it's environment relevant or quality relevant, and then just save all of that. And that's it. You see, we get here a notification which tells us that our tag was also successfully created now, and that we can now press the blue button on the device to activate it. So let's do that now. I just take the device into my hand, press the blue button. You can see the LED is now lighting up in green. And that's it. You can now also see here under all objects that our tag has been created, LT01. We can take a look at that. See here the tag details of it, and under it we can find our asset as well. Currently we don't have any data from it. It first has to activate, therefore also the status currently says still activating. So we will have to wait a little bit for our first measurement to arrive. But in the meantime, we can already create our first inventory that we want to use this FWR30 with. So we can, for that, go back to the dashboard, for example, and then just click on Create a new inventory. Here we can again give our inventory a name. I will call it IBC1. We can define a type. It could be a container, a silo, or a tank. I say it's a container. You can also define a location, and by that Natillion will create a so-called location folder, which you can use to better represent the structure of your plant. Then we have also the option here, which is optional, of course, all of these. For example, to define the content of this tank, I say it's water. We can define a content owner, a content user, and give this inventory a description as well. Then there is the capacity and linearization settings. You can leave this inactive, but then you will receive your values only in percentage, according to your full empty calibration. But it's more interesting to actually get volumes here. So what we will do is we will activate this setting. And now, down here, we can first off set our volume unit. So I will say it's liters for me. And we can define the maximum capacity. So I will say maybe about 200 liters. Then there is as well the advanced linearization. So maybe your tank has a special shape and you want to customize your linearization according to that. Here that's possible. So you can set this to active and then can enter your first linearization point. So maybe at a level of 10% we have a volume of 30 liters, and then at 50% we have a volume of 60 liters. And you can see I can add here multiple of these points, just as many as you need for your linearization. After we are done here, we can just hit save. And with that, our new inventory has been created. We can find it now under all objects. There's also the dashboard, and you can see right here, we already have here our newly created inventory, but with no values. Why that? Well, we have, of course, also assigned our asset to this newly created inventory first. And that's what we want to do now. So when you're on the inventory details, you can just scroll all the way down and here assign a tag. And that's where we want to assign the tag we previously created together with the asset. So now it's LT01. I just can choose it out of this list or enter it directly and then click on assign. And now we have our tag as well as our asset behind this tag linked to this inventory. And you can see already here on the history of the inventory, we have our first value, which tells us that the current level of the tank is at 42.4 liters. Now there's one more thing I want to show you before you can really get started with Natillion inventory yourself. And that's also the thresholds you can set up, as well as the unauthorized change detection. So under thresholds, first off, you can define a planning type. So is it delivery or disposal? Delivery, for example, would be if you have your tank and you consume its contents slowly over time, and then at a certain point you order to refill it and then have it refilled in one go. Disposal would be the other way around. So your tank slowly fills up over time, and then at a certain point you want to dispose of its contents. For now I set it to delivery, and I can define the plan point. The plan point for me would be then when I want to order here a delivery of the product for my tank to refill it. So I would say for me that's when we hit maybe 20 liters. Our safety stock then is the minimum amount of the content we always want to have in our tank. I will define this now with 5 liters. And we can also add a tolerance, so how much of a tolerance is okay for us. I would say it's 1 liter. Under this thresholds, you can find as well the unauthorized change detection. Currently it's inactive. We can also activate it, and then, for example, for a specific time frame, like let's say between 10 p.m. and maybe 7 a.m., we want to get notified if more than 5 liters are missing from our tank. This could be then, for example, because of theft or because of a leak in our tank. And we can also define here the emails for notification recipients. So it doesn't have to be just an Natillion user. You can enter any email inside of it here. For example, for your logistic partner as well. And after we're done with that, we can also just save again and have that updated as well on our inventory. And with that, we are done setting up our inventory.
Thank you, Melissa. Well, you have seen how easy and fast it is to set up the Natillion inventory subscription and to onboard the MicroPilot FW30. So, if you have further questions, you can always consult the Natillion help pages, or you can create a support ticket within our support service. Enjoy using Natillion inventory with the MicroPilot FW30 and keep easy track of your tanks, silos or containers.